Hello everybody! In this video I will show you how you can 3D model and design these bowl-shaped magnet arrays that I showed in a lot of my videos, and it has been requested a lot of times already on how I design these, and I will just give you a quick tutorial step by step on how the 3D modeling process works. So I use SolidWorks as a 3D modeling software. You can use any other 3D CAD software too. The process will be very similar, maybe the features will be called differently, but yeah, the basic principle will be the same. So let's just start off with how I do everything. And yeah, the basics will be you have to create the bowl itself at first, and I will just go through the thought process on what is important and how I start off everything. So the whole thing is a bit of trial and error, so it will take a bit of time. So just take your time when designing this first. Also, this is not a beginner project. You have to know the basic knowledge of 3D modeling in these CAD softwares. So we start off with the first sketch that I will show you to make the bowl itself, and the most important thing will be the radius of the inner radius of the bowl itself. And of course this depends on how many magnets you use and how large the magnets are, and you don't know at first what the inner radius of the bowl will be, so you just have to assume a certain radius. Like here the radius is 30 millimeters, and if you don't know that, you will probably start with 40 millimeters, and you just assume a value that seems realistic for the size of the magnets and the amount of magnets you want to use. The outer radius of the bowl is just the inner radius plus, for example, 10 millimeters if your magnets are 6 millimeters tall. So you have certain wall thickness. You can just use whatever dimension you want to have for your wall thickness. So the magnets will have place in there, and you also have still a bit of wall thickness. And this is just how to create the bowl itself. So now we have created the bowl. I will go to the next step, which will be this sketch. And this next sketch is I just created a half circle with the inner diameter of the bowl itself, and then what you see here, let me just open up that sketch. What I did here is I just assumed where the first row of magnets will be placed. So I just drew a line of 10 millimeters inside here where I think it should be placed. You might have to change that position a few times till you get it right, but we have the line here, and why you need that is since you have to know the angle of this line will be important. In this case it's 28 degrees, and I'll skip a few steps to show you why you need to know that. Let me just show you these planes. So we have to create a plane here, and this plane will be offset 28 degrees. And then I also created another plane here, which is offset to the first plane. The offset distance, it's also trial and error. It has to cut through the inner surface of the bowl. And also to create these planes, you will have to create two axes. So the first axis is just a center axis around here, and the second axis is this one. You will need these two axes to create this plane, and this one is just the offset of it. And then we come to the actual part of creating the first hole. We create a sketch, I'll show you this one, on this plane, which is cutting the inner surface of the bowl. And here I just drew the first circle, and this circle is based on the sketch we showed before. You can see this line here. I just took this line and created the circle around it. So this will be the placement for the first hole here. And then I just used this extruded cut feature with the circle we just created to create our first hole in here. And of course we want more than one hole. And then I used the circle pattern feature. I'll just show you this. With this first hole that we created, and we make 8 holes out of it. So the amount of repetitions is 8 with 45 degrees spacing. So we get the first row of holes inside here. And this is the basic principle of how I create the holes inside of this bowl. So these steps will always repeat with all the other holes. So it's always just one row of holes. I can show you the same steps with the next one. The next one, there is just one additional step because I don't want the holes to align like all in here. I want them to be offset 22.5 degrees. That's why I created here an additional plane with an offset of 22.5 degrees to this plane. And also another 90 degrees offset plane, and here another axis here, which is also based on this plane with this 22.5 degrees offset. The reason why I did this is just like I said before, I want the next row of holes with an offset, so the magnets can be placed as densely as possible. And here I just made another sketch. Let me just show you this one. Also, I drew in a line here with 10 millimeters length, and I just assumed the position again. And yeah, you maybe have to try and correct it again if the position is not correct. And this line will help to determine the angle. And you will need this angle again for our next plane that I created up here. And then of course we have another plane which is offset to this plane, which will cut the inner surface of the bowl, as you can see here. And then again I just created another sketch with the line that we saw before in the other sketch. I just take that line and place it into this sketch and draw a circle around it. And also an important thing is the magnets are 10 millimeter in diameter, and the circle is 10.2 millimeter that I draw. This is just because with 3D printings you have to have some tolerances so the magnets will fit in nicely. So I just made it 0.2 millimeters larger than it actually should be. Then again I take this sketch with the circle and use the extruded cut feature up here to make the hole. And also my magnets that I use are 6 millimeters in depth, and as you can see I use 6.8 millimeters for the depth of the hole. This is just some additional tolerances so the magnets don't stick out too far. And now we come to the positioning part again, with where you should place. I showed you this again on how to determine where you should place this line. So this is always a bit of trial and error. The reason for that is with 3D printing you have to have a certain, let's say, distance. I will just quickly show you this. Between the holes you have to have a certain distance because otherwise the print won't turn out that fine. And as you can see here we have 0.68 millimeters distance, which is just enough to make the 3D print possible. And this is based on this. You just draw the line, make the circle around it, cut the hole, and then you measure the distance here, and if it's correct, you don't have to adjust it. If the distance is too far or too small, you have to redraw the line, remeasure the angle, correct it with the angle in the planes. I know this is a bit tedious, but this is necessary. Also with the first row of holes where we had the first sketch, let me show you this one, where I draw this line. This was also, the placement of the line was also just assumed. So you have to edit the placement of the line so the distance between, the distance between these two circles is correct. Like if I use a 0.6 millimeter nozzle for printing, so obviously the distance here should be 0.6 millimeters, which is the minimum. Then let's go back to where we were with, again, this hole that I made. I also used the circle pattern feature. You can find it here, circular pattern. Again, we use this one hole, repeat it 8 times, and we get 8 holes out of here. And then you will see the steps for the other holes will just repeat. We make another sketch up here. Let me show you. We assume where our hole will be, draw a line of 10 millimeter, or just up here. And to get the angle where the next planes should be, then again we make a new plane. I will just show you how I make this. This is why we made the axis before, because with this plane you have 2 references, one with this axis and with this top plane, and then you just add in the angle that we measured out with the line. Then you create another plane right here. I'll show you again. Then this distance from where it's just the offset from the plane we created before, with an offset of 29.57 millimeters. This is also just trial and error, and you will see, just try it until the plane just cuts perfectly the inner surface where you want to place the circle. And again, draw a circle around this line that we made before. Use the circular pattern feature to make 8 holes out of 1. Always measure the distance between the holes and adjust the positioning of the line until the distance is correct or the placement is correct. And don't forget, always remeasure the angle of this line and re-edit this angle in here for these planes when you changed the line, and therefore also the angle. And also the same goes for the next row. You will see we get another sketch. We also draw a line in here where we assume the placement for the next hole for the magnet. And again create a layer up here with the angle that we measured. Create another layer which is just offset, so it cuts the inner surface. And draw the circle on this plane that we created here. Use the extruded cut feature to cut it out, and the circular pattern to repeat it, and we get 8 holes again. So the basic principle is quite simple, but it is a bit tedious since you have to reevaluate always where you have to position it. But you will get, it's not difficult, it's just a bit tedious until you get the positioning correct. And what can be really time consuming is, in this case, the inner diameter of the bowl is already correct because it's already pre-designed. But as we said in the beginning, you don't know the inner diameter of the bowl. So let's assume we only, this would be our final row, and then you see, yeah, we have much of space up here, which we don't want. We want the holes to be up here and fill everything up. So in this case, you would have go back to the beginning and yeah, readjust the radius from, let's say you had 35 millimeter diameter before, then we use 30 millimeters like now. If you're lucky, then you guessed it right. Then you have to reposition, of course, everything again. You have to start with this sketch again, reposition the line, readjust the angles, also within the planes. You don't have to draw everything from new, but you have to reposition everything and correct all the angles and values, like for what the new values will be. And yeah, you do this until you're finished, and I will just skip forward to the last row, which of course is the same as the others. And as you can see, like we have it here, everything fits nice and perfectly. The last row is, yeah, fits perfectly within the diameter of the bowl. Also go to the last step. I also created well, let me clean this up. I also created a center hole here. Don't have to do it, but yeah, that's up to you. And yeah, this is basically how I designed these bowl-shaped magnet arrays. It can be quite time consuming because you don't know certain values before, like as I already said, the inner diameter is unknown, the positioning of the hole is unknown, so you always have to assume where the positioning is or how large the inner diameter is. But just you can do the math and pre-calculate everything. I didn't do that. I'm too lazy for that. I'll just readjust the values. But there will also maybe other ways to do it. I'm not a professional in 3D modeling. It's just all self-taught by myself. Just do it with these steps and yeah, you end up with a bowl like this. Also the ones where you use square magnets, the base principle is always the same with all the bowls. This is just how I designed this, and I hope this helped you. If you have questions, feel free to ask, and also check out the links in the video descriptions. And thanks for watching, have a nice day and goodbye.